The drop function is a really interesting tool in Excel for doing exactly what it sounds like, dropping a certain number of rows or columns out of a data set. It's basically the inverse of the take function. So let's say, for example, you have a data set that looks like this one, and you decide to use the drop function. The first thing you'll do is you'll say, hey, let's do a drop on the array of cells that you see right here. And then there are two possible arguments after that. And those two possible arguments are how many rows should we drop and how many columns should we drop. Rows and columns, if you put in a positive number, will start from the top in rows or from the left in columns. And if you put in a negative number, it'll start from the bottom or from the right. Now, in a normal data set, just being able to drop these by themselves is probably not what you're trying to accomplish, because there has to be a reason that you want to drop some of these rows or columns. So in this situation, it can be really helpful to be able to sort, for example, to combine that with the drop so that you're dropping things based on a certain condition. Let's see it in the real world. So all by itself, if we wanted to use the drop function, we could go to cell G6 here, use the Formulas tab at the top of the screen, use Lookup and Reference, and find the drop function. Now, of course, we would highlight the array of cells that we were interested in here. In this case, all the customers and their sales. And now the question really is just how many rows should we drop and how many columns should we drop? Now, let's say we're not going to drop any columns, but what would happen if I typed in 10, for example, to drop off 10 rows? A positive 10 will drop off the first 10 rows, and you can see here that in the results, the first entry that comes up is Stockwell Sager Engineering, and you can see that yes, that is the 10th entry in this list. Similarly, if we put in a negative 10, then it will start at the top at Far West and Company, but it will drop off the bottom 10 from here. So I will click OK. It starts with Far West and Company at the top, but as you can see, it ends at Alvarado Ellison, 10 entries from the bottom, and it drops those last 10 entries. So what's a scenario where you could really use something like this? Well, right now on the right side of the screen, you can see that I have my basic average function, and it's telling me that the average sales comes to $227,000. Now, if we look at these sales, we can see that there are some that are really, really large, $880,000, and then there are others that are very small comparatively at $2,180. So the question is, what would the average be if we didn't include some of those really high values or some of those really low values? Now, the way we're going to accomplish that is by sorting in conjunction with the drop. So we'll go over here to cell M6. And we definitely want to do an average, so we'll go to Formulas at the top of the screen, we'll go to More Functions and Statistical, and we'll grab the average function. But we don't just want to average all the sales. No, what we want to do is we want to drop some of those. So I'll put in the drop function and open the parentheses. And here, because this is maybe the first time we're using the drop function, we'll definitely take our mouse up to the top of the screen, click on the word drop, and it says, okay, what is the array of cells that you want to drop something from? I'm not quite there yet. What I need to do is I need to sort first. So I will go in and type in the sort function in the array, and now I'll just go ahead and highlight all of those values and close the parentheses. Now, by itself, what that's going to do is sort these values in a conventional order from lowest to highest. Let's go ahead and drop the 5 highest values. Now, if the sort is going to go from smallest to largest, then the 5 highest would be the bottom 5. So we're going to do -5 right there. And you can see that, yes, it keeps 2,180, it keeps 3,660. And if I now go ahead and click back on average over here, you can see what I'm doing. I'm sorting that array of cells in ascending order and dropping the 5 highest values. By clicking OK, I can see that that comes to $121,000. Similarly, if I use =average and I decide to drop a certain number of rows, and I sort that array, but this time around, after the closing parentheses, I type in a +5 and close the parentheses, then it will drop the 5 smallest values, bringing me from $227,000 in average sales to $267,000 in average sales. And now what I really want to do here is drop off both the highest and the lowest values and see how that affects things. So we go in, again, =average. We decide to drop a certain number of rows from the top, but also drop a certain number of rows from the bottom. And before we do that, we are going to sort all those values. So now we go in and highlight all of those sales values, close the parentheses, and press comma, let's say -5 for the first one, close the parentheses, and comma +5 for the second one, and close those parentheses. So what this is going to do is sort all the values from smallest to largest, drop the 5 biggest and the 5 smallest, and give me the average when those big and small values get worked out. And when I hit enter, that's a very enlightening piece of information. That dropping out the bottom 5 did not do much in the way of tilting the average back up. Dropping off the top 5 really did a number on our average sales. It's come all the way from $227,000 down to $147,000. So this is a scenario where drop could definitely be used to some positive benefit.